Shalom and good day all, this is Tehillim29 back again for another DC comic review, and in this DC comic review I am covering Action Comics 1036 and Titans United issue 3. I just want to point out that I have not read the previous issue of Titans United because of delays here in Australia, and it has interfered with it. And I think the same can also be said for Action Comics as well. So I am going I'll be reviewing these accordingly, and if there is anything missing here, I'll be sure to point it out in these reviews. So, time to get started on the first one, which will be the Action Comics. So, first things first, I want to let you know that I will not be covering the backstory in regards to this before I move into the review. This will be mainly covering the main story. So, time to get started in regards to this first review. Of course, we've got Philip Kennedy Johnson, and we've got the beginning of the Warworld saga. So, does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that is happening inside of the story? Sure enough it does, and I gave it a 7 out of 10. So now it's time to move into the internal art in connection to the story. And I'll be showing you around the beginning, middle and end. Now this is some of the art around the beginning. This is some of the art around the middle as Superman makes his way to Warworld. And we learn what the S means here for Warworld. And last but not least, some of the art towards the end, to which we get to meet the new present-day Mongol. I must admit, I quite enjoyed the art for this, to which I also gave it a 7 out of 10 alongside with the cover. Now it's time to move in regards to the story and its rating. So, jumping into first things first, did we get any comic references? Sure enough, we did, and a little bit more than what I expected in regards to comic references. So good job to both Philip Kennedy Johnston and the editing at DC Comics. Destroyed Comics, if you happen to read Bendis. We got the comic reference of Action Comics issue 1035, something I've not read, but you know what? Thank you very much, because when that turns up in the mail, I'll be bloody reading it. Golden Age Superman issue 29, to which I'm definitely going to have to check out, even if it's online somehow. And of course, Action Comics issue 1029. Moving into the next thing, how did we go in the area of time? Did we get any indication as to what time it was that this was occurring? No, we didn't, but did it really affect the story? Not a lot. The location, Warworld, and of course, somewhere in space, which could have been slightly cleared up. The cast of characters consisting of Superman, Manchester Black, Enchantress, Midnighter and Apollo, Steel, Light Ray, Omak, and last but not least, Mongol. For the story rating, as you know, with this story, Superman is making his way to Warworld, to which he can play a part in the freeing up of some of the slaves, which is very interesting. And I think in some ways it's a bit of a homage to the original Superman, to which Superman is sort of like meant to be a homage in regards to Moses and freeing up the people who became slaves. So I wouldn't be surprised if that actually happens in regards to this story, and yes, that he will probably return to Earth. To which I gave the story a rating of 7 out of 10. Now it's time to jump into the next story, and by the way, I did read the backstory, even though I'm not covering the backstory in this main review. It was actually pretty good. I liked it, for as short as it was. So now it's time to jump into Titans United. Even though I haven't read issue 2, I am still planning on reviewing issue 3. So, moving into first things first, does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that happens inside the story? Sure enough it does, and I gave this cover a 7.5 out of 10. I will now move into showing some internal art which connects to the story, and of course later on the story rating. Starting off with art around the beginning. With this, we have the appearance of Blackfire, who is Starfire's sister. And my goodness, I like that beast of a machine that she's got next to her. That thing stands out more than what she does. And then we've got Connor Kent, Superboy. I'll now move to some of the art towards the middle of the story. And in this part, we have Wonder Girl, Raven, of course, Beast Boy and Nightwing, and we cannot forget Red Hood. Now it's time to move towards the end of the story. And as we move towards the end of the story, we've got Red Hood coming to the aid of Raven. We've got Beast Boy encountering one of the villains and turning into an octopus. Very cool. And of course taking care of those villains. Red Hood, back to Raven again. Really enjoyed the art in this. For this, I gave the art a 7 out of 10. Now to move into the story. Now, back into how I rate my stories. Were there any comic references to anything that I might have needed to read in the last issue? It probably wouldn't hurt, because with our delays here in Australia, or our Australia Post delays, it might not hurt to include them. It's something out of my control, but if this has any connection to the previous issue as to what happened to Connor Kent, I'd imagine it would need a comic reference to issue 2. In regards to time, it didn't cover time. But did it really affect the story rating that much? Not a lot. In regards to the locations, we had the Dark Side of the Moon, to which Blackfire was at. We also ended up going to a place called Manside, which was a private airfield in California, which the Titans took us to. The cast of characters consisting of Superboy and Blackfire in that ship. I don't know what the ship's called, but it wouldn't hurt to include the name of the ship. We, of course, had Red Hood, Raven, Lady Vic, who is also an assassin, Nightwing, Beast Boy, Donna Troy, and for the overall rating, I gave this a 7 out of 10. I'm really enjoying this. I'm looking forward to how this story ends. Until then, let's keep it colourful and have yourself an awesome day.